Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Capital Ministries Global Director and Serve Ukraine Director, Slavik Rimsky. Mr. Rimsky is a guest of Senator Allen.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to tell you thank you for everything and for the huge support that your country provides for the people of Ukraine. May God bless you. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, we thank you for who you are. You are all-powerful, all-capable, all-sovereign Lord. You are King above all kings. We are grateful for your love and for the privilege to come to you in a prayer. In your holy word, you said, "Call to me, and I will answer you and show you great and incomprehensible things that you do not know." This afternoon, we are calling to you because we are in need of your wisdom, of your guidance, of your power. Most importantly, we are in need of you, Father. I pray for this group of senators and executive officials who are called by you and elected by people to serve and to make laws that would benefit the people of this great state of Alabama. Lead them and guide them in their decisions. Bless their families. Lord, I lift up my country of Ukraine. Please have mercy on our suffering nation and bring this war to an end. I thank you for the American people who have been so helpful in overcoming evil with good. Bless them. As this session is about to start, I pray for your anointment and blessings over these senators. Help them to be at their best today. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Today, the pledge will be led by Senate Page James Danley. James is the grandson of Senator Albritton.
Attention, salute the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Here. Mr. Allen. Here. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Here. Mr. Butler. Mr. Conley. Here. Mr. Chambliss. Here. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Here. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Here. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Here. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Here. Mr. Kelly. Here. Mr. Livingston. Here. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 28 senators present, which is a quorum, and the Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now move on to introduction of bills. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, move that we allow for the introduction of bills throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Now move on to committee reports. All right, Secretary, call the first committee.
From the Committee on Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill number 36 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill number 100 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill number 115 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill number 174 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays. From Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill number 175 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays. From Finance and Taxation Education, Senate Bill 176 receives a favorable report by a vote of 13 ayes and 0 nays.
These bills received a second read to be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation number 35, appointing Catherine Lanier to the State Course of Study Committee, Science, receives a favorable report by a vote of 14 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President,
Senator, you recognized.
I'd just like to speak to this confirmation for a second, and I'm not trying to hold up. I just want to ask a question. How many conferees do we have here today?
I think we have 20 today, sir.
You have 20 today?
Yes, sir.
The great senator from Jefferson is not here, okay?
Okay.
He didn't want to give them all up today. And he's willing to give some, and let's keep moving. And let's do 10 and let that go and save
Great.
10, okay? If we could do that.
Pick the back 10. Just pick the back 10 off there. It'll be fine. Just do the back 10, yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman?
We're fine
Okay,
with that.
Thank you, sir.
I certainly understand, so.
All right, Senator Livingston.
I yield my time back to Senator Livingston.
Thanks, Senator Singleton.
Thank you.
These type things, so.
All
Mr.
right.
President, I move that the Senate confirm Catherine Lanier to the State Course of Study Committee using, well, we don't have a previous role, it's using the long roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley.
I don't care, they're
Mr. Bell.
all similar.
Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
All right, 30 ayes, 0 nays. Catherine Lanier is confirmed. Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that committee report at any time today.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 40, appointing Michael Tu to the State Course of Study Committee, Career and Technical Education, receives a favorable report by a vote of 14 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Michael Tu to the State Course of Study for Career and Technical Education, using previous role with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Michael Tu is confirmed. Secretary, call next conferee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 12, appointing Shane Cobb to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology and Transportation Distribution and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
I move the Senate confirm Shane Cobb to the Textbook Committee, using previous role with no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Shane Cobb's confirmed. Secretary, call next conferee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 13, appointing Lance Hunter to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology and Transportation Distribution and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
I move the Senate confirm Lance Hunter to the Textbook Committee, using previous role with no other objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Lance Hunter is confirmed. Secretary, call next conferee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 14, appointing Nancy Dixon to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology and Transportation Distribution and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, move the Senate confirm Nancy Dixon to the Textbook Committee, using previous role with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Nancy Dixon's confirmed. Secretary, call next conferee.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 15, appointing Paul Moran to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture, Construction, Information Technology and Transportation Distribution and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Paul Moran to the Textbook Committee, using previous role with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Paul Moran is confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 16, appointing Harlan Fennell Benjamin to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology and Transportation Distribution and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Mr. Benjamin to the State Textbook Committee, using previous role with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Harlan Benjamin's confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 17, appointing Eric Fulmer to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology, and Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Eric Fulmer to the State Textbook Committee, using previous role, no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Eric Fulmer is confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation Number 18, appointing Sherry DeLoach to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology, and Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Sherry DeLoach to the Textbook Committee, using previous role, no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Sherry DeLoach is confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmations, Senate Confirmation Number 19, appointing Brian Narr to the Textbook Committee, Career and Technical Education for Architecture and Construction, Information Technology and Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics, grades 6 through 12, receives a favorable report, vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Mr. President.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I move the Senate confirm Brian Narr to the State Textbook Committee, using previous role, no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
All right, 30 ayes, 0 nays. Brian Narr is confirmed, and this concludes confirmations.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Secretary, call next committee.
From the Committee on Children, Youth, and Human Services, House Bill Number 101 receives a favorable report with one amendment by a vote of 10 ayes and 0 nays.
This bill has received a second reading and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions and resolutions.
Mr. President,
Senator Roberts.
I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary read and receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 28 by Senator Roberts, mourning the death of Mr. John A. Cadell.
I have the privilege to work with Ms. Cadell in Saudi Arabia back in the early 80s, and he made Blunt International. And his passing has a big impact on our state and around the world, and I thought it'd be appropriate. I'd like to move that all senators be enrolled and that we adopt this using previous role with no objection.
All right, first got a motion for all senators be added. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Then a motion for immediate consideration.
Immediate consideration.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Thanks, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Senator Kelly.
Mr. President, I'd like to introduce an SJR commending Coach Jana McGinnis for winning the 1,000th game as the softball coach at Jacksonville State University.
Okay. Secretary, read and receive the SJR.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 29 by Senators Kelly and Figures, commending Coach Jana McGinnis for winning 1,000 games as the head softball coach at Jacksonville State University.
All right, Senator Kelly.
Unanimous consent for immediate consideration.
Mr. President, this is time sensitive and I ask for immediate consent.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Kelly. Senator Wagner.
I have two resolutions from rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolutions from rules.
Yes, over here. He was from Monroeville, Monroe and Connecticut. He died of cancer.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 53, mourning the death of former Representative Johnny Lawson Robinson, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution from Rules.
No problem, my friend. Got you.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 5, honoring Alabama Association of Realtors for its 100th anniversary, concluding in 2022, receives a favorable report.
Move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution from Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 61, mourning the death of Aubrey D. Barnard, Jr., receives a favorable report.
Mr. President, move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Mr. President, I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
That's a different one. That's about...
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution Number 1, commending Mr. Jeff Norris for outstanding professional achievement, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of the resolution.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 30 by Senator Wagner, commending Alabama's 2022 record export sales and recognizing Alabama's international trade and export professionals, trade partnerships, and Alabama businesses that export their products.
Members, let me make a few comments about how our state is doing as far as the export industry. Alabama's international exports continue to be one of the state's most powerful economic engines, setting a new record of $25.5 billion in 2022, having increased by 47% since 2020. In global trade, exports of goods and services from Alabama were shipped to 195 countries, whereas Alabama's exports a variety of products worldwide, such as vehicles, transportation equipment, agricultural products, chemicals, minerals, iron, steel, machinery, and paper products. We recognize the service of Alabama's trade export professionals. In other words, Alabama is doing great in exports, exporting to over 195 countries. So I think it's worthy of our recognition. And Mr. President, I move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. The guest of Senator Reed, when I call your name, if you could please stand. Chairman Steve Miller and Commissioner Jim Borden, if y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, any other motions or resolutions? All right, Senator.
Mr. President, I present a resolution honoring SGR, honoring the life of attorney Bartley Eugene Tomlinson III.
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 31 by Senator Stewart, honoring the life of Mr. Bartley Eugene Tomlinson III.
I move that we adopt the resolution with immediate consideration.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thanks, Senator Stewart. All right, any other motions or resolutions? All right, Senator Allen.
Mr. President, I have an SJR.
All right, Secretary Reed, and receive the SJR, please.
Senate Joint Resolution number 32 by Senator Allen commending Mr. Jim Page on his professional accomplishments.
Mr. President, I'd like to send that to rules, please, sir.
All right, Secretary, send to rules.
Senate Joint Resolution number 32 is referred to the Committee on Rules.
All right, any other motions or resolutions? Senator Jones?
Have a resolution.
All right, Secretary Reed, and receive the resolution.
All right, ask it to be sent to rules and
all right, thanks, Senator Jones.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution number 33, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills in the order named shall be the special, paramount, and continuing order of business, taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 8th legislative day only. On page 10, Senate Bill number 62 by Senator Gavan, relating to the Unconscionable Pricing Act. On page 8, Senate Bill number 71 by Senator Williams and Sessions, relating to counties. On page 12, Senate Bill number 73 by Senator Allen, relating to bicycles. On page 7, Senate Bill 119 by Senator Coleman Madison, relating to courts. On page 6, Senate Bill number 59 by Senator Smitherman, relating to public agencies. On page 10, Senate Bill 135 by Senator Elliott, relating to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. On page 9, Senate Bill 138 by Senator Shellnut, relating to the Insurance Department. On page 10, Senate Bill 139 by Senator Shellnut, relating to the Insurance Department.
Senator Wagner.
President, move adoption of the report from the Committee on Rules.
Mr. President,
Senator
I'd
Singleton.
just like to speak to the motion for a second.
You're recognized.
Mr. President, I would just like to say to the Rules Chairman, I would like to thank you for getting these calendars out, and I understand that there's only a few bills that are in position to do so. I appreciate the work that you've been doing, at least to try to keep the continuity of bipartisanship in it, you know, where you can put Democratic bills, you have done that, and I really appreciate that. But I want to say to these committee chairmen, though, that we need to get some more of the Democratic bills out of these committees, at least let them come up for a vote up or down, so that we can get some of our bills out on this calendar. We feel like we got good bills that the state of Alabama, that can move this state, that representative of this state, we have a voice in this state, so we want our voice to be heard also. So we ask that the committee chairmen start to look at more Democratic bills, and at least giving us an opportunity to get those bills on your calendar. With that, Mr. President, I move to adopt the calendar.
All right, would you like to use previous roll?
Yes.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 62 by Senator Gavan, relating to the Unconscionable Pricing Act. BR pending.
Senator Gavan.
Mr. President, I would move the BIR using previous roll. There's no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 62 by Senator Gavan, relating to the Unconscionable Pricing Act.
Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So what this bill does is it allows the governor or the legislature, if the legislature is doing it, to confine if there's a state of disaster or emergency, let's say down at the coast, doesn't affect the Tennessee Valley, it would not be statewide. The governor would have the authority. She would not have to, but would have the authority to confine the disaster order to a certain part of the state as far as the laws that relate to the Unconscionable Pricing Act and not causing people to deal with unnecessary litigation in other parts of the state. I see somebody across the way, Senator from Hale County. You have any questions?
So this bill, Mr. President,
Senator Singleton.
so your bill will allow the governor to be able to isolate the state just to a territory.
Correct.
Based on an emergency. Some of that can happen now, though, couldn't it? I mean, if you do a state of emergency, the whole entire state does.
Apparently is triggered by this, and so you had, let's say, we've had some tornadoes in the Black Belt. It didn't affect North Alabama at all.
Right.
Of course, we've had it the other way around. I mean, you just have certain things that affect certain parts of the state, and this allows her, doesn't prevent her from just saying statewide, declare an emergency. It allows her to confine the area that would be considered a state of emergency.
Okay, I don't see a problem with that. No problem.
All right. So, Mr. President, I would move for final passage using previous roll. There's no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Thirty ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 62 passes. Thanks, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
That's not you yet.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 71 by Senator Williams and Sessions relating to counties. BR pending.
I passed the BR on previous vote, Mr. President.
Too goddamn man.
All right, any objection using previous roll? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 71 by Senator Williams relating to counties. Committee amendment pending.
Senator Williams.
You have the committee amendment? You have it?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I would like to ask a question.
All right, you're recognized.
I just want to thank you for bringing this bill, which allows us to bring advertisement up to the 21st century instead of everything going through newspapers or publication. Even though there are a lot of our areas that still has not gotten a lot of broadband to be able to do this, over computer, but still we need to do it where it's feasible to do it. And so this just brings us into line with probably other 49 states in the union to be able to do this. So I want to thank you for bringing this bill. And you have a committee amendment to adopt?
Yes, I do.
All right. Would you like to adopt the committee amendment using previous roll?
Previous roll, yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, any objection?
No objection.
Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. Senator Williams.
Mr. President, I have another amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 71 by Senator Williams. Replace lines 26 through 27 on page 1 with the following. Pursuant to Title 11 of the Code of Alabama 1975 shall also be posted in both of the following ways, provided that there.
That's a good amendment.
All right, I'd like to move.
Move for third reading. Move to adopt the amendment.
Using previous roll?
Use previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Williams amendment's adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to pass the bill on previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 71 passes amended. Thanks, Senator Williams. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we moved earlier through a process in the regular order where we had a House message. So I'd like to ask for that House message to be brought back now. I'm going to ask you to recognize Senator Gudger.
All right, Secretary, call the House message.
Message from the House. Mr. President, the House of Representatives has amended, as therein shown, and as amended, has passed the following Senate bill and returns same herewith to the Senate. Senate Bill number 113, relating to healthcare facilities. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk.
Senator Gudger.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, there was an amendment added to the visitation bill for everyone that was downstairs that we went through this the past 2 years, and that was to add clergy to the rooms so that people would be able to have the clergy into those rooms. And just to remind everybody, this is the gentleman that we started this bill with, Senator Reid and I did 2.5 years ago, Harold Sox from the Republican Party Chief of Staff. And I believe there's a recognition if we wanted to do that now.
Yeah, absolutely. In the gallery, I have a special guest of Senator Gudger, Debbie Alvis Sachs, the daughter of Harold Sachs. If you could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate.
And at this time, if it's appropriate, I'd like to concur with the House messages that came up and to approve this bill.
Are you using previous roll?
That's correct.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Is that your only House message? Just one?
31 ayes, 0 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 113. Thank you, Senator Gudger.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Reid. All right, Secretary, call the next bill on the special order calendar, please.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 73 by Senator Allen relating to bicycles. BR pending.
Senator Allen.
Yes, sir. This bill here was brought to my attention by something that took place a couple years ago. So just a little cleanup that this bill will provide that all people must wear a helmet in riding a bicycle, and that's in Class 1 and Class 2, and of course in Class 3 as well. And so with that, I would like to, if I could, explain something to each member. There was some questions in committee concerning the Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. So Class 1 is an electric bicycle equipped with a motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling. Then Class 2, the electric bicycle equipped with a motor that may be used while you're pedaling. And of course, Class 3 is that the rider is pedaling and that it ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 28 miles an hour. So that's the three classes. And if there are any questions, I would love to pass the BR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 73 by Senator Allen relating to bicycles.
Senator Allen.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I would like to pass the bill using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Thirty ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 73 passes. Thanks, Senator Allen. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 119 by Senator Coleman Madison relating to the courts. BR pending.
All right, before we get started, let me recognize some special guests in the gallery. Two different groups. First, Senate Page Grady Wheeler's grandmother, Deborah Smith, and his great aunt, Jean Patterson, the guest of Senator Jones. If y'all could please stand. And Gumbo from our Gulf Coast, the Gulf United Metro Business Organization in the gallery, the guest of Senator Elliott. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, Senator.
We're in the Gumbo crew.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move SB 119 using the BR, move BR.
All right.
Use the previous roll.
Any objection? Senator Singleton.
No, go ahead. I won't object to it. No.
All right. All right. Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
A 30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill 119 by Senator Coleman Madison relating to courts.
Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. SB 119 is a Department of Youth Service bill. Currently, a person that is 16 years old or older may be charged, arrested, and tried as an adult for a felony offense involving the use of a dangerous instrument against certain persons, including juvenile probation officers as an official. Well, all this bill does is require that that person of the same age would be tried as an adult for a felony offense if it involves using a dangerous instrument against an employee in a juvenile detention center. We do have these problems in our youth centers, and this will allow us to offer some protection for our employees there.
Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
Yes. As you know, I've discussed this with you, and I just have some problems with making felons out of our 16-year-olds.
Well, we already do.
Yeah, I mean, but at least sometimes they can get YO. They can get youthful offenders. This here bypass the YO stage and take them straight to the felony. Okay, this really doesn't give them an opportunity to get YO, which put them still in the juvenile stage. You can get YO on any other criminal charge up to 21 if the judge so granted, which is they can be granted youthful offender even over 18, up to 21. This bill right here, even in this detention, and see, that's what I'm thinking, because these people are a lot of times are in situations where they are trying to contain these youth or have to put them down or do something. And I just don't want subjectively that if the youth were to pick up something or hit them with the fist or found or something might have been laying on the ground, they felt like, you know, they was in a chokehold or something, they hit the worker, and now you want to charge them with a felony because they were defending themselves. It's a thin line in whether or not this youth could be defending themselves. We've found abuse in these homes before, from the workers to the children. And I just don't want that abuse to be turned around and say that was aggression by a 16-year-old or over to get them a felony for the rest of their life because somebody didn't want to do their job.
And I understand your point, and it could be used that way. You know, you got a kid that cuts up, and maybe you just don't like the kid's attitude.
Right.
But what can we do? And I'm willing to work with you on this deal.
And I see where you're going with that. You know, I just think that could be a level between that and just trying them as a felon, because if the dangerous instrument and there was no real bodily harm, you know, how do we measure that? You know, and it's going to be based on intent. Did he intend to strike me, you know, in the eye with this pencil, and then who defines what is a dangerous weapon?
Well, let's say, I guess anything could be used as a dangerous weapon. Like exactly. You said, a pencil can be used as a dangerous weapon.
Exactly.
But let's look at it this way. So the intent is really not to be punitive against our young people. You know, I've got a center there in Birmingham, which is the VACA Center. And we have a number of centers that are located. Mount Meigs is one that everybody's familiar with. The intent is really to try to provide something here as a safeguard, to let them know that, okay, there are consequences if you attack a guard. And so if we don't go that level, can we work on something, or do you have an idea? I'd be willing to carry
the only thing that I could see is that if we give judges some discretion.
Okay,
to be able to look at the situation case by case to see whether or not there was that intent to do that bodily harm to that person based on evidence being presented to a judge. Then the judge could then decide to try them as an adult versus give them youthful offenders.
Well, Senator Singleton, you are the legal mind. I'm sure you have thought about this. Can we get something that we can add language into this? And I don't have a problem with it.
Let's just carry this over to the call of the chair.
Okay.
Let's give her time to think about it for a day. Let's talk to some other legal people and see would that work for us in terms of getting some language. Because you still achieve what you want to achieve.
And that's all we want to do.
Right.
We want to protect our young people. You know, they are there for a reason.
Right.
But we don't want them to leave with the same attitude that you can do anything even here. And then you go out there and it escalates. You really will be in main facility.
And I agree. If that act is deliberate, they should be punished.
Exactly.
Okay? And so, but I just don't want that to be, you know, how that could be turned around sometimes. We see abuse in nursing homes. We see abuse in these youth homes. We see abuse to children. And I just don't want somebody to walk in and because usually if the adult tell a story, they're going to take the adult word over the child.
When I grew up, there was only one side.
Exactly.
You went to school and you came home and you know, you got a note from the principal or from your teacher said, Linda did X, Y, Z, and I'm like, I didn't do it.
It was over with.
Hey, you didn't have. The teacher said you did it, and that was it.
Did.
I understand where you're coming from.
So
on this.
I just think there need to be a buffer between that automatic felon. Say if the totality of the circumstances is being looked at and it's being determined that it was the intent to do that by, you know, whether it's the warden who look at it or whether or not it's the judge
But it
who
needs
looks
to
at
be
it.
somebody else to make that determination, and not just the individual that's involved. I understand what you're saying.
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, not wanting to delay this, we carry this over to call the chair when we try to work something out?
Sure. Any objection?
No objection.
All right, hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 119 is carried over. Call the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Secretary,
Thank
call
you,
next bill on the calendar.
Senator, for working with me on this. Thank you.
On page 6 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 59 by Senator Smitherman relating to public agencies. BR pending.
Senator Smitherman. All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The BRR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 6 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 59 by Senator Smitherman relating to public agencies. Committee amendments pending.
Senator Smitherman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill deals with the public agencies establishing a Personal Privacy Protection Act, prohibit public agencies from disclosure of information identifying supporters of a 501c nonprofit organization. There's 3 committee amendments, and if at this time, I'd like to call up the first amendment.
All right. We're on the committee amendment right now. You want to approve it with previous roll?
Yes, if there's no objection.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Committee amendment number 1 is adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Smitherman.
We request adoption of the amendment number 2. And ask unanimous consent to use previous roll.
Okay. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment number 2 is adopted.
Mr. President, we request passage of the committee amendment number 3 and ask the unanimous consent to use previous roll.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nay. Committee amendment number 3 is adopted. All right, Senator Smitherman. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask unanimous consent to carry it over at the call of the chair. One of our members, we've been discussing an aspect of it. Actually, the people on the committee will remember that the senator from Madison had some questions at that time that they're working through, but it's just not enough time. He was out there trying to work through it out there then. So I'm just requesting to carry it over to call of the chair, and then once it takes care of his concern, then we'll come back
Okay, got a motion to carry over call of the chair. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 59 carried over call of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Smitherman.
All right, thank you, members.
Secretary, call the next bill on the special order calendar.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 135 by Senator Elliott relating to alcoholic beverages. BR pending.
Senator Elliott.
Mr. President, move the BIR using previous roll, please.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 135 by Senator Elliott relating to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board.
Mr. President, I have a sub.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the substitute.
Substitute for Senate Bill 135 by Senator Elliott.
Mr. President.
All right. Hold on first. Senator Elliott.
I'd like to adopt the sub if we can using previous roll.
Can you explain what the changes are in it before we adopt it, Senator?
Happy to,
Thank you.
sir. The substitute deals with some changes that were requested by ABC and worked out between ABC as it relates specifically to training, online training. For the responsible vendor program.
Is that the only difference in the two?
Yes, sir.
All right, got a motion to adopt the sub using previous roll. Senator Livingston, you good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hearing no objection, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Elliott substitute's adopted. All right, Senator Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this deals with allowing 18 to 20-year-olds to serve alcohol at places where they have a special retail license. 2 years ago, we passed a House bill that allowed most different restaurants to allow their servers to serve alcohol once it's prepared by a bartender. This now will encompass the special retail license holders. It also provides a way for online training to take place in the responsible vendor program. And again, that's something that we've worked out with our friends at the ABC board. Do I have questions? Yield.
Yes, sir. So this is not for the general restaurant out there. This is specials?
To be clear, this is a two-part.
Thank you.
And what it does is the first part handles the special retail licenses, and then it deals with the responsible vendor program and online training after that.
So
it affects
the whole scope of folks training.
Yes, sir.
And there isn't a person of age available when in the restaurant when it's being served by a minor in this situation.
Yes, sir. Not just that, but prepared by. This is just the server taking the beverage to the table.
So can you explain what kind of online training you're looking at? Do you have some definitions of that and what the program might look like? You know, I've seen on WSFA interviews, we've had lots of issues around.
Sir, certainly. So the responsible vendor training or testing for these licensees will be conducted by live trainers in a classroom or by online trainer, either individually or in a classroom. And the online training must include an individual testing in order to pass. Further, it requires each employee who is authorized in the normal course of his or her employment to complete that employee training course that is set out within 30 days of commencing employment.
So I assume that the folks at ABC are content with this language?
They are.
Sure. All right, Senator Singleton.
You need to come on. Question, please.
You're recognized.
On your bill, thank you for bringing this bill. I think that we need to be doing some more online training and doing the training, making it more mandatory than it is just voluntarily, if we're going to have a safe and controlled state. And I think that we can deal with a lot of stuff based on those kind of controls. I do know right now under the Volunteer Act, right, most of the industry have to come up with their own training, then submit it to ABC. Then ABC would look at it and approve it, then they would do it. Does your bill allow for ABC to come up with something that is general across the board, or will it continue to be where the different agencies will come up with their own? Because right now you may have 30 different training tapes going on out there that, you know, I'm not certain what's going on, but I do know under the Volunteer Act is that they have to create their own training, and then the training is then approved by ABC. Does your bill allow ABC to come up with the training, or does it continue in the path that is on already?
It doesn't preclude, as I read it, ABC from coming up with their own training, but it also doesn't require them to do so.
Okay, because I would figure that if we require ABC to come up with one, they're going to want some money to produce that training.
I don't doubt that for a second. I don't doubt that for a second.
Okay, but I see where you're going, but...
Well, right now, Senator, we've got about 20% or so of those that are serving have actually completed this training, this responsible vendor training. We're trying to increase that, and the barrier to that is the lack of online training. And what you have, unfortunately, is a lot of servers who would otherwise have participated in this RVP program, but they haven't because the training is hard to get, expensive, etc. And we'd much rather have somebody that had online training than no training.
Because when you started looking at bars and restaurant, the turnover there. In terms of having people to come on. That's why I was looking at if there's a general training that ABC produced, then let's say for interested, I'm XYZ bar, I've got a new employee, a part of the trainer there is you go on just like we do ethics, you go on and train, you look at it, you put in a code, we know it's from that bar under that license, you know, and we know who got their training. ABC has that data that they sit, they know that Bobby Singleton just got his training today.
On day one.
On day one, they would know. Exactly. Exactly. So that's why I was thinking that if it's uniform versus me having to fix it, put it up there for all of my people, and then you not know until I tell you. But at least the database, if I plug into your website to go on the training, ethics knows when I go on there and do my ethics training. They know when I do it because I got to plug in that number. And if we do it that way, and I'm looking at trying to bring something on another bill about automatic training, and maybe I'll put it in mine.
Yeah, let's talk about that because there was some back and forth between ABC and the industry and what we were trying to do, but we reached a conclusion, and I'm pretty pleased with it, and I think everybody's pretty pleased with it. They want more folks to have this RVP.
Yeah, because I think if you get it online, you're gonna get more people to participate. Because right now, you only got about 20% of the people participating in the volunteer program. Well, when you get alcohol violations, it's usually coming from that 80% that doesn't, from their establishments. So if we can get more people involved in the training and give them more online without having to come to Montgomery, be present, listen at a lecture, or you set up something that you got to be present to do so, which is antiquated now, then it'll allow more people to participate. I just want to thank you for bringing this, but I'm just looking at it, taking it a little bit further if we need to. And I'm going to be working out with ABC to see whether or not we can do this on a mandatory basis, that they will have a uniform kind of a training that will come up that you can just plug in, and they'll get that data on day one, as you said.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you very much.
All right, Senator Elliott.
I yield to my colleague who seems to have a question.
All right, Senator Barfoot.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. President. Senator Elliott, not to besmirch your good name, but whenever I see somebody that comes with a substitute on the floor, it always makes me wonder what's in there. We've talked about the substitute being a little different from the original bill. I understand from your side of the equation, it just allows that online process for responsible vendors. Is that the only change?
That is the only
change. Not to besmirch you, but
that's the only change in the statute. Fair question. I have no problem with that. We passed the bill in committee prior to ABC being there to talk about some of their concerns. We talked about them following that committee meeting and agreed on this sub, and that is why there is a sub on the floor to incorporate the ABC changes that they wanted.
I appreciate you. Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Barfoot. All right, Senator Elliott. All right, Senator Figures.
Mr. President, thank you for the recognition. Senator Elliott, I want to thank you for all of the hard work you have done on this bill. As you know, I've met with my restaurants and bars and businesses in Mobile, and they are very much in favor of this legislation. So I appreciate you getting with the ABC board, because I know we have to work, in sync with them as well. So I'm ready to vote for final passage of this bill. I'm sorry, Senator Livingston wants to come. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Figures. Senator Livingston.
Senator, so make sure I understand exactly where we are on being able to serve, participate. Package stores, ABC stores, minors are not allowed. So make sure I'm clear on where we are there.
Okay, from a serving standpoint, and just to get pretty myopic on this bill only, it is allowing 18 to 20-year-olds to serve in establishments that have a special retail license. So these are, to use some examples from my district that I know y'all are familiar with, the Grand Hotel, the Perdido Beach Resort, that may have one license for the entire property as opposed to separate properties. This applies the same standard allowing service as what we did in House Bill 176 a year or two ago that allowed 18 to 20-year-olds to serve in restaurant venues. It's just a different type of license. We forgot the special retail licenses when we were fixing that problem. So that is the difference as far as who's serving.
And you've added in the responsible vendor training online availability. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is the second part of the bill to encourage the electronic version, the online version of the responsible vendor training, and again, in a manner that was worked out with the ABC board.
Lots of industries use online training to train their employees up, so it makes sense that ABC would want to take advantage of that, and they may want to develop their own program. And I think, like Senator Barfoot said a few minutes ago, maybe you haven't precluded them in doing that, have you?
No, certainly not, and I'd encourage them to do so. I do worry about them coming and asking us for some money to do it, but I think they can probably do it on their own.
That's good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. President.
Senator Elliott.
I would like to move we pass the bill as substituted, SB 135 as substituted, using previous rule without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
30 ayes, 2 nays. Senate Bill 135 passes amended. Thanks, Senator Elliott.
Mr. President.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill 138 by Senator Shelnut relating to the Insurance Department. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Shelnut.
Move for final passage. Passage the BR using previous rule with no objection.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
$32 ayes, 0 nays. The PR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill 138 by Senator Shelnut relating to the Insurance Department.
Mr. President, SB 138, it removes the requirement of publication in 2 or more newspapers of general circulation in the state for Department of Insurance hearings. And it requires the department to make notice on their website and in the Alabama Administrator Monthly. So this just makes their process easier and makes it better for the general public. And so, not seeing any questions, I move for final passage using the previous rule. No objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Good.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 138 passes. Thanks, Senator Shelnut. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 139 by Senator Shelnut relating to the Insurance Department. BR pending.
Senator Shelnut.
Oh, Mr. President, thank you. SB 139, move for passage of the BR using previous role, if no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 139 by Senator Shelnutt relating to the Insurance Department.
Mr. President, give an explanation of this bill. Under existing law, insurance producers, independent adjusters, and title insurance agents are required to complete a pre-licensing course of study approval by the Commissioner of Insurance prior to taking the appropriate licensing examination. What this does is this is going to get rid of that, where they don't have to take the course if they don't want to. And the bill would delete the requirement for insurance producers, all independent adjusters, title insurance agents to complete a pre-licensing course of study prior to taking the appropriate licensing examination. If they can pass it without taking that course, we feel like they should be able to. Under existing law, service representatives are employed by insurance producers in the sale of property insurance. This bill would eliminate the service representative license in the state, and the bill would authorize a person holding a valid service representative license on the effective date of this act to continue to renew this license. I do have a colleague that is senator that has asked me to carry this bill over at the call of the chair, and I intend to do that in a minute, but if Senator Figurs has a question or comment.
Mr. President.
Senator Figurs.
I wanted to come in and stand in support of this legislation because I didn't know that Senator Shelnutt had this legislation, but I had talked with the insurance commissioner about it some months ago. I, too, am a licensed insurance agent, and it really doesn't make sense when many other states don't make you go through that whole 40 hours or so hours, and many times you finish the studying material before that, as I did. So it just delays the time because you have to stay in there and make sure you clock that time before you can take your license. And what that's doing is keeping us from having people go on and get licensed so they can start making money and paying taxes to the state of Alabama. So I am in support of your legislation, and anything that I can do to help, I'm here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Figurs. It's always a good thing to be making money and paying taxes. So with that, Mr. President, I'd like to move to carry this bill over at the call of the chair with unanimous consent.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Senate Bill 139 is carried over call of the chair. Thanks, Senator Shelnutt.
Mr. President.
Senator Reed.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, thank you for your hard work today. I appreciate you being back in your place, defending honor and freedom. So we're going to be finished for today. I'm going to leave the Journal open for House messages until 5 p.m., and we stand adjourned until tomorrow at 3 p.m.
All right. You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. President.